The following strange haunting took place in Southern California, possibly in the late 70s or early 80s. At the time of the first incident, a young woman called Sue had been attending university and was driving home. It was a Friday afternoon, and as she was driving, she noticed a young woman standing by the side of the road, and she appeared to be just staring at the traffic as if she were waiting to be picked up by someone. Sue looked at the young woman and thought that she looked vaguely familiar and could quite possibly have seen her around the university campus. Sue then gave 2 short blasts of her horn to signal the young woman that she was pulling over to give her a ride somewhere. She then pulled over in front of where the young woman was standing and glanced at her rearview mirror, but she had somehow vanished, and as she turned her head, Sue could see no sign of her. When she looked around, she was nowhere to be seen, and there was no way she could have disappeared that quickly. Sue just shrugged her shoulders and continued her journey home, which was about a 10-minute drive. It was a warm evening as Sue made herself a light snack and sat out on the patio and worked on a school project. Both her parents were out, so she had the whole house to herself and was studying so hard that she lost track of all time. As it was still warm, Sue suddenly realized that she was very thirsty and headed inside to grab a cool drink. As she opened the door to grab a cold drink, she suddenly felt extremely tense. Someone had come into the room, as she could hear the sound of footsteps. They were not loud, but appeared to shuffle across the floor, and Sue's body became cold and clammy with fear. Sue looked at the clock and found that it was too early for her mother to be arriving home, and besides, she always greeted her with a cheerful hello as she came through the door. This was not her mother, because whoever it was seemed to creep along the floor. Initially, Sue was too terrified to turn around, but in a split second found enough courage to turn her head, but there was nobody there. Feeling both scared and relieved, she then sat down on the sofa and turned on the TV for company, but could not understand how she could be so spooked. It was at this time that she thought back to the young woman at the side of the road and how she had mysteriously vanished. She sat watching TV until her mother arrived home. That evening, Sue continued to think about the mysterious woman and was trying to recall her name, as she was sure she'd recognized her from university. Sue spent the evening watching a movie with her mother and felt less apprehensive than earlier, and attempted to rationalize the strange disappearance as well as the mysterious footsteps in the kitchen. That night, Sue fell asleep fairly quickly, but suddenly found herself awake around 6 a.m. the following morning. She quickly rolled over, hoping to fall back to sleep, but then suddenly recalled what had awoken her up in the first place. It was the mournful, persistent female voice calling her name over and over. She tried to shake it off as part of a weird dream and just forget about it. The following day, she was sitting out on the patio having lunch with her mother when the phone rang. Her mother went to answer the call, believing it was her husband, but when she answered the phone, there was just static. The phone rang again, and this time Sue answered the call, and it was her boyfriend Greg. But halfway through the conversation, they were cut off, and the static returned. As they returned to the patio to resume their lunch, her mother said, "I swear this house is haunted, because earlier I heard the patio door close, believing you were coming inside, but when I turned around to see, you were still on the phone. So, who closed the door?" Sue did not want to share her strange experience with her mother and make her worry as well, so she just laughed it off. But she now felt that something weird was definitely going on. That night, while Sue was asleep, she was suddenly awoken by the sound of someone knocking frantically on her bedroom door. She just lay there, terrified to move, waiting for another knock, but nothing happened. She left the bedroom and headed to the kitchen, and of course, there was nobody outside her bedroom door. She made herself a hot drink and slept on the sofa, as she was too scared to go back to her room. She wanted to run to her mother's room, but felt it was a bit childish, and so resigned herself to sleeping in the living room. The following day, her father returned home, and they went out to dinner, and that day, nothing strange happened, and she felt relieved. The next day, when Sue was at university, she was walking down the corridor and she spotted her friend Tori and called her over. Tori then stared at her and asked "Who was that person that you were with?" Sue looked at her with a confused expression and replied, "Nobody." Tori insisted there was a young woman walking beside her and looked familiar, but could not think who she was. Tori said, "Surely you must have seen her, but the strange thing is, she suddenly disappeared." She assumed the girl must have just walked into one of the classrooms, but why did she not sense the woman walking alongside her? Sue felt she could only put it down to another spooky incident and was getting a bit tired of it all. Sue felt she needed to discuss the strange events with somebody that might be able to figure out what was going on, and approached one of her tutors called Jake Linder. Jake had given lectures on the paranormal, so he might be able to help her. She spoke about the young woman by the road, the footsteps in the kitchen, the static phone call, the calling of her name and the knocks on a bedroom door, and finally the woman walking with her in the corridor. He suggested she keep a journal and then call him if there were any more strange incidents. The following week went without any dramas. Then on Thursday evening, she was going through some recently developed photographs and was shocked when she came upon a photo of her friend Jamie that she had taken at uni. It was Jamie's birthday, and she was sitting opposite Tori with a birthday cake between them. But Sue was looking at a student in the background who just happened to be there when the photo was taken, and was by herself looking at the birthday celebrations. The student had a forlorn look on her face, and Sue suddenly realised that the person was a young woman on the sidewalk. The photo and the person on the sidewalk had the same lost and helpless expression. She remembered her name was Babs, and she was only at uni for a short while and had attended the same classes as herself, Tori and Jamie. Babs had no friends and found it difficult to socialise, and Sue had sat with her at lunch to chat with her. Babs would often stand at the same spot on the road waiting to be picked up, and on one occasion Sue gave her a lift in her car. Babs found it hard to make friends and had tragically died of a brain hemorrhage. Had it not been for the photograph, Sue would never have remembered her. She then placed the photo in a handbag and the following day took it to Jake to show him. She told Jake the whole story, and as she was about to show him the photo, found it had disappeared, and after emptying her bag, could not find it. Sue could not understand why the young woman had decided to haunt her, and Jake suggested it was probably because you tried to help and befriend her, and that Sue was everything that she wasn't and envied her. It appears that Sue's haunting began because she wanted to do someone a good deed. The following week, Sue was relieved that she had been left in peace and hoped it would remain that way, but that was not to be the case. On Sunday, she was helping her mother do the laundry, and as she entered her bedroom to strip the sheets from her bed, she was suddenly paralysed with fear when she saw Babs sitting at a dressing table. She quickly ran to the kitchen to compose herself and was grateful that her mother was also in the house, but she did not tell her what she had just witnessed. The weirdest thing was that when she got out of bed, she had opened the windows to a gentle breeze blowing in from the desert. It was a beautiful sunny day, yet when she entered her bedroom, everything appeared deathly still, and there was no breeze or smell of desert flowers, but instead it smelled of dead chrysanthemums and the smell of decay, and the air felt thick and dense. A short time later, Sue was brave enough to enter her room and found it light and breezy again, but she knew she could never sleep in there again for fear of inviting back her unwanted guest. Later that day, she informed her mother that she'd moved bedrooms, but did not tell her the real reason. She did not want to impose her fears on her mother. The following day at university, Tori commented on the terrible perfume Sue was wearing, and that she smelled terrible, and said it smelled like rotting vegetation. Sue said she was not wearing any perfume and could not smell anything herself. Had the horrible decay in her bedroom now rubbed off onto Sue? Sue approached Jake, stating that her situation with Babs was getting totally out of hand and he needed to offer her more help rather than filling out a journal of events. Jake said he would call a friend that could help her. Later that evening, a young man had turned up at her house, accompanied by 4 investigators from the Institute of Psychical Research, and performed a cleansing. Fortunately for Sue, her parents were out with friends and would never know what had taken place in their home. Whatever the investigators had done worked, and Sue's terrible haunting was over. However, Sue never went back to her old bedroom. The following day, Sue was walking across campus with her friend Tori, when a friend commented that the previous day she was driving home and noticed a young woman standing by the roadside as if she was waiting for a ride. Tori said that the young woman looked vaguely familiar and was certain she'd once seen her around campus. She pulled over to offer her a ride, but she then vanished into thin air, which she thought was really weird. Sue was once again paralysed with fear and grabbed the card out of her bag and implored her to call the Institute of Psychical Research immediately, and then ran to her car and drove home in the opposite direction, as she did not want to relive her dreadful hauntings.